What is going on, guys? This is Boyd, your senior developer, Salesforce developer, with your first Apex tutorial. But before we get started, just want to let you know there's something that you need to do. You need to set up a developer edition Sandbox, and you do that by going to developer.salesforce.com. It should bring you to this exact page or something that looks very familiar to this. And once you go here to developer.salesforce.com, you click on sign up. And then you just complete the boxes here, your first name, your last name, whatever email address you can use. You can use it in several developer boxes, developer edition boxes. You can use the same email address for multiple, but what needs to be different between them is the username. So you just complete this information, check the box, click sign me up. And once you do that, you'll receive an email to verify the account. And then you'll set your password. And then once you're signed in, it'll bring you to this page here, and this is where we get started. Okay, so this tutorial is about Apex, but the first thing we need to do before we can build Apex is we need to create an object that we can write code against, and we're going to call that object hamburger. So it'll be hamburger. So let's create a new object using the object manager tab there, and in here I'll just type hamburger, and I'll just copy that. And then as I click away, it'll auto-populate there. And then here for plural, I'll put multiple, or put an S on the end for plural. I'll just check these boxes. We're not going to worry too much about what these settings are here, because this is about Apex, not about the admin part of things. And now let me click the little eyeglass there, and I got a screen that popped up over here, and I'm just going to choose a quick tab. I'll just go with the airplane. I like to fly once in a while. I'll just accept all the defaults by clicking next. I'll click next. I'll accept. Yep, look all good to me there. And now we have our hamburger object, and we need one field that we're going to add to use inside of our Apex trigger and Apex class. And so click on field and relationships, and now I'm going to go to new. And once I get to new, I want to make this text field. We'll just keep it simple for right now. Let's go next, and we are going to call this field, let's see what name we can give it, because we have the hamburger object. So you know what, we'll just call this hamburger. Let's see, is that what I want to call it? We're going to call it cheese. Let's go with cheese. Yeah, because on a hamburger, you need cheese. We'll just give it 255 characters. I don't know. And let's go next. And from here, did it accept? It's not going next. Go next. There we go. We'll accept all of these defaults here. Next. And then we'll save. And then you see now we have our cheese field. And so now if I click the little grid there and type in hamburgers, I can now open that. This is that object here, and once I create a record, which we'll do in a second, this is where the record will appear. Okay, so back to the setup screen, which is where we are, and now where did my type in box go? Let me go back to my quick find box. It's probably going to be here. Yeah, you want to go back to this quick find box, and now let's type in Apex, because what we're going to do now is create an Apex class to handle the trigger to update that field that we created on the hamburger object. And so right here, we're going to go ahead and start typing in our Apex class. Let's go with public class. We'll call this hamburger trigger handler. It'll make more sense in a second. We'll bump that down there, tab in once. Let's put a method in there. Public static void, because we're not returning anything from this method. Hamburger meal is what we'll call this method. Bump that down. And what this method is going to receive is a list of hamburger. Make sure I spell that wrong. And then this, the variable name, hamburger. So we're going to receive a list of hamburger records from our trigger when a hamburger record is either created or updated. And so we have our method here inside of our class. And now this is what I like to do inside of every method. I fill out the skeleton. So inside of every method, I'm going to try. And then I'm also going to catch. I'll explain here in a second. And so what this is it's going to try whatever's in this block. And if there's an error, it's going to catch it down here, and it's going to print out the error however we want it to print out. And so I'm just going to copy and paste this because it's a little bit wordy. But it's going to print to the log if there happens to be an error, the name of the class, the name of the method, and it's going to say exception method. And whatever that error is that's caught, it's going to print out the message and the stack trace here. Okay, but what's going to be inside of this block here? What do we want to do when we receive a list of hamburgers? So we're going to do something like use a for method to iterate through that list of hamburgers. And so we're going to say it's of type, I'll just copy this, of type hamburger, the list is, and it's one burger as we iterate through the hamburgers. So this is saying I'm receiving a list of hamburgers. I'm going to iterate through that list, and the list is of this type hamburger. And so this is saying for each hamburger in this list, what do I want to do? And so inside of here, use a condition. I'm going to say, all right, if the burger cheese, which is that field we created, if that cheese field is not equal to add cheese, then what we want to do to that field on this burger is make it equal, or set that field to add cheese. That makes sense? But I have hamburgers variable does not exist on line 4. Did I spell it wrong? Probably. Cheese does not exist. Why doesn't it? So if I go here and I go to hamburgers, I'm going to need to go view the object. So let's go here instead and open that. Hope it doesn't get rid of this because I haven't been able to save it. My mouse is acting silly. Okay, so let's go here and let's open this. I knew that would happen. And let's go to field and relationships. I have cheese. Oh, it named it hamburger. So let's, that was clearly a mistake. So let's edit that. And the field name will be cheese. Makes sense. All right, yes. Save. Okay, so now I have my cheese _C. And if I go back to my Apex class, what did it do? It didn't save it. Good thing I copied it. Paste. Now cheese should be there. Now I'm able to save. So this is saying from the trigger, so I'm calling this hamburger trigger handler, I'm going to receive a list of hamburgers when a hamburger record is created or updated. And then for each of those hamburgers, I'm going to iterate through them. And so for this hamburger, if the cheese field doesn't say add cheese, if it's blank, if it says anything else, I want to set that field to add cheese. And if nothing will probably go wrong in this, but if there was an error to happen in here, that error would be caught and it would be printed out here for you to view in the dev console. So we have our method. Okay, so now we need to work on building out the trigger. My alarm's going off. I have to go pick up a pizza here in a second. Okay, and so I click open the dev console because you can only start to create the trigger through dev console. So I'm going to say I want a new Apex trigger. What object do I want it on? I want it on hamburger. Where are you? Hamburger. There you go. And I'm going to call this trigger hamburger trigger. Makes it easier to find later when everything is lined up and you're moving components. And so we're going to go with before insert and before update. So before is meaning before a save event. It's a good rule of thumb is to use before instead of after if you don't need access to system generated fields. If you don't understand what those are, the things like created date, the ID of a record, like stuff you don't, fields you don't populate, fields you don't control, values you don't control, the system generates them. If you need access to those values, then good rule of thumb is to use like after insert or after update. But if you don't need access to those kind of fields, then the good rule of thumb is just use before as when to trigger on an insert, for instance, or on an update. And so when a record is inserted, that means created or updated, what do we want to do? We want to add a little condition here. And we're going to say if this trigger is a before trigger. So if, I spelled that wrong, didn't I? So if trigger is before, which it gets us to both of these, gets us access to both of these here, because if this was a before update, or if this was before insert and this was after update, well, it would exclude this one because this would be after, but they're both before. So it's giving us access to both of those. Okay, so if trigger is a before trigger, which it is for both of those there, then we're going to add in another condition that says if trigger dot is insert or trigger dot is update, then what do we want to do? So if the trigger is a before trigger, which it is, and if it's a before insert or a before update, that includes both of these, because if we had a before delete, it would get us in here, but it wouldn't get us into the insert or update condition. Then what do we want to do if that happens to be the case? And so if I go back to my Apex class, what we want to do is call this class, which I just copied. We'll paste it here, period. And I'm going to grab the method name, hamburger meal. And I'll come back over here and I'm going to paste it, hamburger meal. And then I'm going to send trigger.new. And trigger.new, all that is a list of all the newly inserted or newly updated hamburger records. So when a hamburger record is created or when a hamburger record is updated, if we're going to go through this little logic here, and then we're going to send whichever hamburger records were created or updated to that Apex class that we created. So let me go ahead and save this really quick. Let's see if that saved correctly. Yep, so I closed this. And now back over here under triggers, we couldn't see that there before because we have to create it through dev console, but now it's here. And we can edit it here if we want to later. But okay, now that's done. So let's test out what we've done. So I'm going to hit the little grid here. I'm going to type in hamburgers. That takes me here. I'm going to create a new hamburger record. Hamburger name, I should have chose auto number for this field, but I didn't. I just type in Happy Meal. And you see this cheese field? I'm going to leave it blank, but that trigger is going to say if it doesn't say add cheese in that field, make it say add cheese. And you see there, I didn't put anything in this field. It says add cheese. If I erase that and I say mayo, then the update part of the trigger is going to work to make that say add cheese. Again, it's just going to take it right back to add cheese. So that's the end of this quick tutorial. Hope it was really helpful. Again, this is Boyd, just teaching you Apex little by little, starting from the beginning. I'll try to put these videos out at least maybe like once a week or something like that if I have time. But if you have any questions or comments, pretty sure you know how to get in touch with me by now using comments or using inboxes or whatever. But I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.